Hi, this is Dan from Hello Music Theory. In this series of videos, I'm going through some of the questions that could come up in an ABRSM Grade 1 Music Theory exam. In today's video, we're going to take a look at intervals. So there are two types of questions that could come up in a Grade 1 exam. The first is where you have to name the interval. You have to give the number, and it will either be harmonic or melodic intervals. So hopefully you know a little bit about intervals already, but there are two types. Harmonic, which looks like this over here. And a harmonic interval is where you have two notes that are played at the same time. So they'll be on top of each other, like this. They're played in harmony with each other, and so they're harmonic intervals. This one here is a sixth, so I'm going to pop in sixth there. And then the other type of interval is a melodic interval, which is where you have two notes that are played one after the other. They're consecutive. They're in a melody, so they're played as part of a melody. So these are melodic intervals. This one here is a fourth. Now there are three things you need to remember when you're doing this question. The first one is that they'll always be in the same key. So there are four different keys for grade 1 that you need to know about. They are C major, they're all major scales, C major, D major, F major, and let me rub that out, F major and G major. So these are the four keys that you need to know about for grade 1. The second thing is that the interval will always start on the keynote. So start on the keynote. Now the keynote is just another name for the first note of the scale, or the tonic is another name for it. So the first note of C major is C. So C would be the keynote in C major. The first note, the keynote of D major would be D. I think you're getting the idea. The keynote of F major would be F, and so on. So it's really easy. So it'll always start on the keynote. And the last thing is that they'll either be harmonic or melodic intervals. There won't ever be both. So it's really important to work out which one it is and make sure that you're not, in the second type of question, not doing the wrong type of interval. So it will never be harmonic. It will always be harmonic or melodic. So let's have a look at some examples, and I'll show you how I'd work it out and how you can, so a few little shortcuts and tips and stuff. So in the exam, they'll have 6 little mini stays like this. The first one will always be completed for you, so you can see what they're expecting. So we've got you can see here where they've put in the interval here. This one's an octave, and so they've written 8th or 8th E, which also means octave, and that will be done for you already. So then you just need to work out what these ones are. Now the first bit of information to look at is what key you're in. So this one here is, all these examples, because they're always in the same key, it's got 2 sharps, which is D major. So what I recommend doing is on your little bit of scrap paper that you get in the exam is write down the name of the key, so we're in D major here, and then just below write down the 8 notes of D major scale. So the first note is D, because we're in D major, it's also the key note. Then you've got E, we've got F sharp, it's the third note, we've got a G, A, B, C sharp, because there's 2 sharps, and then lastly the octave above, the D. And then just write the number of each of these. So the first note is D, the second note is E, the third note is F sharp, the fourth note is G, fifth, you're getting the idea, 6, 7, 8. And this is going to help us when it comes to working out what the interval is. So let's look at the first example here. We've got a D is the key note, and then the harmonic interval here is an F sharp. So all we need to do is go down to our little scale down the bottom and see where F sharp is. So F sharp is the third note of the scale, which means that this interval is a third. It's really that easy. So let's have a look at the next example and we can see if you can work it out as well. So here we've got a D, and this note above is an A. So we're going to go down to our little scale that we've got down here, find where A is. It's the 5th note, which means that this interval is a 5th. Okay, hopefully you're getting the idea. Let's keep going. So this one here is a bit of a tricky one because the notes aren't on top of each other, they're actually next to each other. And you might think that it would be a melodic interval because they're consecutive, they're one after the other, but this is how we write an interval of a second. Because the notes are so close, you draw the second note just slightly to the right of the first note. So this is a D and an E. E is the second note of the scale, so this one here is a second. It's important not to confuse that with a melodic interval. Okay, two more to go. We've got here we've got a D, obviously the key note, and then the note above is a D, E, F sharp. It's a G. So we find G in our scale. It's the fourth note, which means that this interval is a fourth. And then lastly, just one more for luck, we've got a D as the key note, and then this note up here is a B. So we find where B is in our scale. It's the sixth note, which means this interval is a sixth. Okay? So that's the first type of question. Let's have a look at the other way that they could ask you about intervals. So the second way is where you'd have to write in a note. You have to add a note above or next to an already existing note so that it makes the named harmonic or melodic interval. So here we've got a, this one's supposed to be harmonic over here. When they're asking you to do harmonic intervals, the note will often be in the middle of the stave. So you can see this one here is right in the middle. This is about equal either side. And again, they will tell you whether it's harmonic or melodic in the question. So just make sure you read the question so you know which one it is. And then on this, we've got to write in another note so that it forms an interval of a fifth. So this one here would be F. It's an F major, so we need to write a C in there so that it's a fifth. And this one here is a melodic interval, so we're going to write the note after it as part of a melody. It's in C major, so the third note of C major scale is an E, so we're going to pop an E in to the right of the first note, and we've got a melodic interval of a third. So again, there are three things to remember about this question. It'll always be in the same key, exactly the same as the first one, in the same key. It'll also start on the key note, which is also good to know. They'll always be harmonic or melodic, like we said, harmonic or melodic, never both, but it could be either. Melodic, I mean, can't write today. There we go. And then lastly, they'll always ask you to write in a higher note than the first one. I'll explain what that means in the next slide. So write in a higher note. So you're not going to write in a note below the first one. It'll always be above the first note. So let's look at some examples and then hopefully you'll get an idea of how to do this one. So first thing again we're going to do is we've got this one's already been done. So they're giving you an example of what they need you to do. So we've got to add in a note. But as I said before, the first thing to notice is what key we're in. Okay, so these examples are all in F major. And we can do the same thing that we did before, where we write out the scale on our scrap bed of paper, and then it will make it a lot easier when working out the intervals. So the key of F major starts on an F, and we've got a G, we've got an A, it's got one flat, which is here, the B flat is there. Then we've got C, D, E, and then lastly an F. And I'm just going to number these as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, oh, let me try that 3 again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and lastly the octave above, the 8th. So this will make it a lot easier now that when we come to do these questions. So starting on the key note, we've got an F, and we need to write in the note that is a sixth above it. So again, we can just consult our little scale diagram here. We find the note that is number 6, which is a D, which means we need to write in a D above this F. So the D is this and the bass clef is this middle line note right in the middle of the stave. And these are harmonic intervals as well, so we're going to write it above. If it was if they were asking us to do melodic intervals, we'd write the D to the right, but this one is harmonic. So that's how easy it is. The next one here, we've got an F, and we need to write in another note that is a seventh above. So we find the note in our scale that is the seventh note, which is an E. So we need to write an E above this note, which is that top space on the treble clef. So then it's an F to an E is a seventh. I've got 3 more to go, and then we'll finish. We've got an F as the key note. We need it to be a fourth. The question wants us to do it as a fourth, and the B flat is the fourth note of the scale, so we need to draw in a B flat. And it wouldn't be down here, because that would be writing in a note below, and you always have to do it above. So we're going to find the B flat above, which is just on that top line there, and that's a B flat. We don't have to add the flat here, because it's already put in the key signature. So we can leave it without, and that's an interval of a fourth. 2 more to go, we've got a second. So hopefully you remember what we spoke about earlier in the video where we're talking about intervals that are a second. When it's a harmonic interval, we always write the note to the right of the first note. So a G is going to be a second here. So we're just going to do a G, right, almost touching, just slightly touching even, just there. We wouldn't do it all the way over here because that would be melodic interval, and we wouldn't do it above because it just gets a bit messy. We'll just do it to the right slightly, and we've got that one's done. And then lastly, we need to do a third. We've got an F as the first one. We find the third note in the scale. It's an A, so we need to do an A above, and that just is the note that sits in there, in the bass clef, and then we're done. So hopefully that's made it a little bit easier, and hoping you're understanding it a little bit more. We'll be back again next week with another video, but if you have any questions or comments, just pop them below or drop me an email, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks so much.